Hello, everybody, and welcome to Kissing the Cod, all things gold. We are joined today by a very accomplished geologist, Roger Moss, who I will introduce momentarily. The gold sector exploration business is often a very tough world, and it's driven by some very intelligent and fiercely independent, unique characters. Many of them travel around the world and make discoveries of gold and other minerals that are very important in our daily lives. Roger Moss is one of those people. Roger is the CEO, president, and director, and many other duties at Labrador Gold, LAB on the TSX. And he's joining us today to tell us about himself and his company and what they're doing in Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome, Roger. It's great to see you.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here, and thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to it. As you mentioned, I am a geologist by training. I've been working in the industry for probably 35 years or more. And I was actually brought up in South Wales in the coal mining areas. So my grandfather was a coal miner, and so I was exposed to mining at an early age and realized how important mining is to economies. My parents moved to South Africa when I was 13, and of course I went with them. And so I went from one mining country to another, and of course in South Africa has a wealth of different minerals, but they were and I think still are to some extent known for their gold in the Witwatersrand Basin, but also platinum, lots of coal, which is where we moved to the coal fields, because that was the Welsh background. But so yeah, I've been involved, or at least exposed to mining for my whole life. And when it was time to decide what I was going to do, I really didn't have any intention of settling down and sitting in an office all day. And when I found out that geologists can actually go out in the woods and wander around looking for rocks, that was what I decided I wanted to do. And of course I had to get to university, and I remember having a conversation with my parents. And I said, okay, I'm gonna be a geologist, so I need to go to university. Is that okay? And they said, well, yeah, that's fine, but how are you gonna pay for it? I just looked at them and said, isn't that your job? And they said, well, no, if you want to go to university, you're gonna have to pay for it. So I was kind of lazy at school, high school. And my marks weren't that great, but I realized that one way of getting into university was to get in South Africa. They call them bursaries. They're kind of like scholarships, but you have to actually work for the company during the summers and after you graduate for a certain amount of time. And so I actually pulled up my socks in my final year of high school, managed to get a bursary, went to the University of Witwatersrand studying geology, and the bursary was from Anglo American. So I worked for Anglo American in my summer vacations, and ended up working in Namibia for the prospecting arm, Anglo American Prospecting Services. And during the 2 years that I was working there, we actually found the Navachab gold mine, which was huge. The team that I was managing were kind of we discovered the discovery outcrop. So that was really exciting, and things changed overnight. And it was my first taste of success, I guess. I'd always loved being out in the woods and or in this case, the desert, and looking at rocks. But to see the change when a discovery is made, going from having to fight for every penny to keep on working, to basically, what do you need? We'll get it there tomorrow. It was quite a change, and I think that that was a good start. It was a good start to my career. And then I came to Canada because mainly because the South African Defense Force wanted me to go fight, and it was still apartheid, and I didn't want to do that. So I left, came to Canada, started working here, sort of at the bottom again, because that was in 1989. So the industry was in one of the downturns at that point. So I took what work I could get and managed to work my way up again. And yes, I went to U of T, did a master's and a PhD. Now it's interesting because both of those degrees were on seafloor sulfide deposits. So it had nothing to do with gold mineralization or porphyry coppers, or it was all about hot springs, black smokers, and that kind of stuff. But it was just so fascinating that I could not do it. And my supervisor at the time, the late Steve Scott, was one of the big Canadian names in seafloor exploration, and basically promised me a dive in a submersible if I signed up. And sure enough, he came through for me, and I managed to go down and see these things firsthand on a Japanese submersible during my PhD. So it was great. And then going back to exploration after I graduated, I worked mostly in Central South America for gold, but also some of the big porphyries. We had a project in Chile looking at porphyry copper, molybdenum. I moved to Colombia for a while, running a company there that had a porphyry gold deposit, which is on the verge of going into production now. And Labrador Gold really came about in 2017 when we'd been working on a project in Ontario that hadn't worked out. So we were looking for another project, and one of the funds that were financing us at that time introduced me to Sean Ryan, who many of your listeners will know, very famous prospector from the Yukon, and he had just staked a whole bunch of ground up in Labrador, and so that's when we got involved in Newfoundland and Labrador with Sean up there, and that was, as I said, 2017, and since then my focus has been on Labrador Gold.
Wonderful. I just listening to your story, thinking about how parents shape our lives inadvertently by not financing your university education. You've ended up all around the world, probably doing a lot more interesting and diverse things. I had the same situation, parents that wouldn't pay for my university degree, and with my huge student loan decided to move to the north of Canada, and the world opened up. But really curious about what it's like on a submersible.
Well, you know what? It's fortunate I'm not claustrophobic. It's the area that you're in. We had the way they worked it on the Japanese ship was you had a pilot and a co-pilot and a scientist. So I was the scientist on the one dive, and had the two Japanese pilot co-pilot, and we're in like a little bubble in the front of the submersible, probably, I'm guessing 2 meters in diameter. So 3 of us crammed in there for 8 hours. And the really freaky thing is, and I wasn't the first one to go down, so I knew the procedure, having seen the other scientists go down every day. The submersible gets hoisted off the ship and put into the water, and then it's left floating, and so it's not tethered to the ship at all. And the way that the submersible dives is it doesn't actually dive down under engines. They basically fill up the ballast tanks, and so it sinks. So you're thinking, I hope those pumps are going to be able to pump out the water in those ballast tanks so we can get back up. But it was fascinating. Like you go through, and once you're through the photic zone, which is, I don't know, it's probably only about 100 meters. It's completely dark, and there's nothing. All they have are like tiny little dashboard lights because they want to save as much of the battery power as they can for when we're down on the bottom. So it's completely dark for probably about an hour as you're sinking into the depths. And we ended up down at about 1.7 kilometers, just over a mile deep.
Wow.
But it's really comfortable. I mean, it's temperature controlled. It does get a little bit chilly at the bottom, but you go in dressed normally. You don't have to have any special gear in there, and so as long as you dress warmly, you're fine. And they have little bags you can pee in case.
Well, you're very fortunate. You've had an interesting career that's led you to Newfoundland and Labrador. So you're in Labrador, you meet up with Sean Ryan, and things start to change in the jurisdiction. You've made some great progress. So maybe tell us a little bit about what Lab Gold's history is and where you are now.
Yeah, so I think meeting up with Sean was obviously a great. It's one of those fortuitous things that happens if you're sort of in the right place at the right time, I suppose. And when I met Sean the first time, I had no idea what to expect. I'd heard of him, but only on the periphery. And we met. I think he was in Toronto, and we wanted to meet up and discuss his Labrador properties, which we did. I suggested we meet on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock because he had something going on in the afternoon. I wanted to get off to the cottage that weekend, so I said, okay, I've got about an hour. So why don't we meet for breakfast at 9, and then we can chat about stuff. And so we did that. Met at 9. I didn't walk out of there till 12:30, and we talked the whole time and drank lots of coffee. But yeah, I mean, we just hit it off right away. I think we're about the same age when we came up in the mineral exploration industry, sort of on parallel courses, I guess. And we both believed in doing things what you might call the old way. A lot of the success that I have had has come from just doing systematic exploration, and before kind of rushing ahead, not getting too far ahead of yourself. And that's what we did. We did that up in Labrador on the properties that we optioned from Sean, and we've had success on 2 of them. We still have one up there, Hopedale, and we'll be going back up there again this year. And that was really good because we managed to raise some money. We got a lot of work done covering large areas. And as you and listeners to the podcast may know, Sean doesn't stake little bits of ground. He stakes big swaths of land. And the Hopedale project that we have covers, I would think, 80% of an entire greenstone belt. So looks very good. It's good for, obviously, your orogenic gold. There's potential there for nickel. There's potential there for VMS, copper, lead, zinc type mineralization. It's gold that we've been focused on, and it's going well. But again, once you've been up there for a couple of years and you're not drilling yet, people get a little antsy and want more out of the company. So that's sort of that was about end of 2019. We started looking for another project, and that's ultimately how we come to the island.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this before, that the challenges of grassroots exploration and the how you move a project forward when you've really got to do a lot of things that maybe are not that exciting to the investors. But it's so important to do the soil sampling and that other activities that lead you to the potential for discovery. So, and how do you manage that, continuing to push on the grassroots while keeping something more exciting or advanced for the investors?
Well, I think for Labrador Gold right now, where we're at now, we're very fortunate in our Kingsway project here on the island that we are drilling, and we have been drilling for over a year now on our targets, and we've had some success. So that's really that's really helped us. So what it also allows us to do is to bring projects like Hopedale along in the background, where we're doing the necessary work, the geophysics, the geochemistry, and the mapping that really doesn't excite anybody to go out and buy a whole bunch of shares unless they're very sophisticated and understand the need for doing that and have the patience to wait. So yeah, I think we're fortunate that we can actually drill down here on the island at Kingsway while bringing other projects along in the background where the not so sexy work is being done. So if you have the opportunity to do that, that's probably the best way to do it.
And you have a nice healthy treasury, and with some great investors, Eric Sprott and Newfound Gold. Your Kingsway project is in the vicinity of the Newfound Gold's Queensway. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you made the discoveries there. You've got a great treasury, great shareholders. What's the story behind the Kingsway project?
Well, like I said, we were looking for a new project towards the end of 2019 because we realized that we weren't getting any value for the projects we had in Labrador, and our treasury was actually diminishing, and we were going to need to raise some money, and we didn't really feel like we were going to have much success trying to raise it on the projects that we had in Labrador. So we've been looking around and kicking some tires on different projects, and then what happened in January of 2020 was Newfound Gold announced their discovery at Queensway and at the Keats zone. Incredible intersection, 90 meters of 93 grams, I think it was. And that took a lot of people by surprise because it seemed to come out of nowhere, but of course it didn't, because they've been working there for 3 years. But it really focused a lot of people's attention on Newfoundland. And because I've been working with Sean for the past 3 years, I knew that he had ground in Newfoundland. I just didn't know where it was. So I called him up and said, "Hey, Sean, like that ground in Newfoundland, where is it?" And he said, "Well, you're not going to believe this, Roger. It's right next to that discovery of Newfound Gold." So I said, "Oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, what are you going to do with it?" He said, "You're the fourth company to ask me that today." And I'm like, "Oh, man. Okay, so what's the plan?" And he eventually put it out sort of a sealed bids, which we were fortunate to win. The little bit of due diligence I managed to do led me to believe that this was something that we really should be aggressive on. And it mainly for me came down to the Appleton Fault, where these occurrences that Newfound Gold had were strung out along it. And once I saw that, and we had projected the Appleton Fault based on the airborne magnetics that we were able to find up onto the Kingsway property, or what's now the Kingsway property, it became almost a no-brainer that if this fault is really a prospective fault for gold mineralization, as it seems to be on Queensway, there's no reason why it wouldn't be the same a few kilometers north. So we went pretty hard and optioned the licenses, 2 licenses from Sean and that was at the PDAC. And then a few months later, I tracked down another geologist who had a license in between Sean's 2 licenses, and we optioned that one as well. So by the time we went out to start working there in August, we had the property, I think is 77 square kilometers is what it is, but more importantly, we had about 12 kilometers of the upland fault that was covered by the property. So yeah, then it was just doing the grassroots exploration that Sean's famous for, and I believe in. We did a lot of soil sampling. We did a lot of ground geophysics and a lot of prospecting. So we really hit it hard in that first 4 months. We even did a little bit of drilling, but I think it was the first time that Sean's RAB drill had been used any RAB drill for that matter, had been used in Newfoundland. And we did that on, I think we did 28 holes in that first season. The results weren't great. In fact, I got in a lot of trouble for putting the results out, and investors really questioned my judgment. But it gave us something that we could test these anomalies with very quickly and very rapidly. And so I think it was a good decision to use it. Maybe not a good decision to put the results out, but anyway, it's so that's all done. And the end of that first year of 2020 field season, we discovered visible gold in a boulder, a couple of boulders actually, and that's what became the big vein target, which we started drilling in March of last year, and is still drilling now. So it was a very successful first 4 months, and the success has continued over the last year.
I love the story about how you named the big vein. You have to tell the story now. It's probably, I take it away.
Yeah, well, we had, like I said, we had prospectors and we had geologists out mapping, and the geologists had been making their way south on the property, and the one day they were going out and they'd be mapping these veins that were, they weren't necessarily very big. They were sort of anywhere from 10 to 30 centimeters in width, but a lot of them. And then they were walking down through the woods, and Mark, the lead geologist, was out in front of the two guys that were helping him, and he called back and he says, "Hey guys, you got to come and see this big vein." And sure enough, there was a vein that was standing up. And any of your listeners that look at our presentation, you'll see the photo of big vein with the person sitting on top, and it's so it stood up out of the forest, the forest floor, probably about maybe a meter tall, and it was about, it was at least 2 meters wide, and the outcrop was, how long is it? Probably about 5-6 meters long. So it was, in terms of what they'd seen elsewhere, this was huge. And so when Mark came back and told us that, we said, well, we got to name it Big Vein, because that's you named it right there. And that was in October, and we knew that we didn't have much time, probably only into November, to get the rest of the field work done before the snow flew. And we just blasted that whole area with prospecting, came up with the boulders with visible gold a few weeks later. And yeah, that was sort of a nice way to end the field season.
Very nice. I wanted to talk a bit more about the RAB, because I think what you did was very bold, and in having the first RAB there, and I'm a believer in RAB drills. And when you're the first, sometimes being bold is not rewarded very well. But we worked with Sean up in the Yukon, and I've known Sean and Kathy, seems like forever. And he had a RAB drill. We tried it at a project. I loved it. But he was always so busy, we had to buy our own. But tell me what you liked about the RAB rig, because I think it's something that we'll see more of in Newfoundland.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, for me, the biggest advantages are its mobility. It's lightweight, it's track mounted. You don't need to cut the big drill pads that you need for diamond drills. It can maneuver quite nimbly through the forests. Obviously, if you've got thick bush, you're going to have to cut a trail for it. But you can do that, and the environmental impact is so much less than diamond rig. So all of those things are pluses. We really do try to minimize our impact as much as we can, and we're always telling the diamond drillers that. And we have a geologist that's dedicated to looking after those rigs and making sure that they don't go crazy with cutting big drill pads or excavating things that they don't really need. So environmental impact is big for us. And the RAB, the other thing that's great about it is, like we had tried, I think, in that first season to push the RAB to its limit. And when I talked to Sean about it afterwards, he said, well, you know what, you're probably pushing it a little bit too hard. Like if you can, the RAB can probably drill 60 meters a day into the bedrock. And that's all you need to test your target. If you're looking at a soil anomaly or something like that, you don't need to go down 200 meters. And so we decided that's what we were going to do last year, and we had a lot better success. We'd do a hole a day, and so you can imagine when you got these targets and you're doing a whole day, then you can cover them very efficiently. So all of that is really good. One of the arguments against the RAB has been, oh well, you don't get drill core, you just get chips, which is true. You don't get drill core, but you do get chips, and you can log the chips, and you can see if the quartz in the chips is mineralized. And we also use the portable XRF, so we can XRF the chip. So we don't have a problem with that. But the other thing that Sean or Ground Truth does is that they have a televiewer, an optical televiewer that you can put down, and it basically takes photos of the wall of the hole, and then you can use that to get your structural information. Now we did have some problems with not getting good optical images, but that was probably mostly because of murky water where we were, and that can be managed. I mean, you can use acoustic televiewers instead of optical, so you don't have to worry then about the clarity of the water or whatever might be in the hole. So there are ways around that. But yeah, I think the RAB is a really good tool for very efficient follow-up of your initial anomalies with low environmental impact. So it's all beneficial.
I agree, and I think you're right. It's a great first step after you've done the initial groundwork and before you get into the very expensive diamond drilling. Kudos to you for taking that step, and I think you'll be rewarded for it.
Well, I think we have been already to some extent. Some of the RAB holes that we're following up have actually proven to be pretty good. The only target that we haven't used RAB on is Big Vein, and that was really because we had an outcrop with visible gold that we could drill right under, so and go from there. So we didn't really need to target Big Vein the same way as we do our other targets.
So you have a healthy treasury, some discovery, some a work plan, a very busy year. I know you're in Newfoundland right now. You actually are a resident, and you're getting ready for a busy season.
Yeah, we are. And it's days like today. I've been out here now 10 days, I think, and this is the first day that the sun has actually shone. It's been snowing and raining, and it's been pretty miserable, to be honest. But when the sun starts shining like this, you think, okay, like this is going to dry things out, and if this carries on, we could be back to work pretty soon, which we're all looking forward to. It's getting a bit of cabin fever, I guess, right now, and not being able to get out in the woods, and because we're very fortunate in that the Kingsway property is crisscrossed by logging roads and forestry roads and so on, and but this time of year they're just a complete mess. You certainly can't drive a truck in there. You'd probably be challenged to drive a quad in there right now. So it's what we're doing now is we're doing more planning. We're relogging core and doing all the sort of studies and research that we just don't get time to do when we're full out drilling, because we do have, well, before we broke up here for the breakup, we have 5 drills drilling on the property, and so that brings a lot of core into the core shack every day, and we're continually expanding the core shack and the core yard, and everything is, so that's another thing that I've been doing out here, is trying to figure out all that. So very busy. We're very again very fortunate that we have that treasury, that we can that we can plan so far ahead and plan all these drill holes. You probably know that we've got 100,000 meters planned. I think we're about 38 or 39,000 meters through that, and we'll probably get through the rest of it this year. And I think yeah, I think we're gonna make some more discoveries along the Upland Fault and elsewhere on the property.
You know, your company's really emerging as one of the leaders in the jurisdiction, and I'm very happy for you and your team. Working in Newfoundland, I love it. The people are wonderful. The government's progressive. Any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't say enough good about the government. You know, as I mentioned, we've been here working in Newfoundland and Labrador for over 4 years now, and we've always had really good support from the government. Usually very timely communications. We all know last year permitting took longer than we might have liked, but whenever we sort of wanted to get the status of our permits, we were answered very quickly, and you know, things moved along as good as well as they could. And yeah, I think, you know, the government does seem to be very committed to the mining industry in Newfoundland. I think it's great. I think the industry has a lot to offer, and you know, we know, well, as I mentioned earlier, my background, my childhood was spanned into mining countries, where the mineral wealth contributed a lot to the economy. And I suspect the same will be true in Newfoundland in the next 10 years or so, when we get more mines into production. Obviously, Marathon Gold is out in front now with plans to start mining in 2024. And I think Maritime Resources are going to be putting a small mine into production in the not too distant future. So yeah, I think things are looking well. I really take my hat off to the government to in the way that they support the industry, not only in words and getting the staff to sort of communicate, but also in things like the junior exploration assistance program, where you can apply for grants and, you know, do the work, and they reimburse a certain amount of your expenditures, but also the incredible online data that they have, the geoscience atlas, the geoscience online. It's one of the best I've seen. It really is. I mean, you can go on there and you can get pretty much any information you need about you know, whatever projects have been going on in Newfoundland and Labrador, and it's really, that's really a treasure trove of information. And you know, I think that's what has made Sean so successful in Newfoundland and Labrador. He mines that database to come up with all the ideas that he does come up with, and he's really good at it. So good for him and good for the government for having that kind of service available.
Definitely. And I wish the jurisdiction great success and wealth from the mining and exploration sector. I do believe that the sector has the potential to be a great local wealth generator and jobs, contracts, taxation, everything. So I've really enjoyed our chat today, Roger.
Yeah.
I wish you a very successful season and anxiously awaiting your results. You know, like I said, good treasury, great shareholders with Eric Sprott and Newfound Gold as big positions, and discoveries, a fabulous team. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you for everybody for joining us, and stay tuned. We hope you continue to meet some really interesting people and hear some great stories from a fabulous jurisdiction as we have a modern day gold rush underway. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. It's been great. A lot of fun.